Hey there, survivors. Thanks for tuning in to tonight's episode. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. It really helps me keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now let's get started. The gate buzzed low as my ID card skimmed the reader, and the heavy steel swung open to swallow us into the Lexington Avenue underworld. It was just past 1 a.m, August 14th, 2028. Hot, stale air seeped from the access shaft behind Grand Central like the city's breath had turned sour. Normally the night shift kicked off late. Signal room liked to drag its feet. But tonight the dispatcher's voice crackled sharp through the radio. Tense, clipped. Track 108 had to be cleared before daylight. No explanation, just urgency. We were 5, old hands and fresh boots. Ramon Lopez, our no-nonsense crew chief, always carried himself like he owned the rails. Erica Snowden, power specialist, quiet but sharp-eyed, already cycling through voltage checks. Fab, Paul Fabian, our welder, big arms and bigger attitude, wheeling the diesel gen like it owed him money. Derek Cho, still green, trying not to look nervous under the weight of his first real shift. And me, Michael Hartley, senior tech, 17 years crawling through tunnels that reeked of brake dust and rat urine. Together we rolled 2 carts of tools and steel down the sloped corridor, deeper into the silence where New York pretended to sleep. The third rail was cold that night. Expresses had already been pulled from service up at Columbus Circle, but the tunnel still pulsed with heat and that telltale tang of ozone. Coffee cups and metro cards littered the ballast, proof of a million tired feet that had passed hours before. We found the cracked pandrol clip just past marker 44W, not far from where the old pneumatic mail tunnel ghosts through the wall like a forgotten artery. We'd done this before. Lift the rail, jack the tie, pack the grout. Simple work, repetitive, but comfortingly familiar. Fab kicked the generator to life, and the vault lit up in dusty gold. Yellow halos bounced across soot-blackened tile and aged rivets. I dropped to one knee, ratchet snug in my gloves, listening to the bolts talk back as I tightened them one by one. The radio on my vest hissed with scattered chatter, dispatchers fumbling codes, voices layered with tension. Something about a citywide mobilization. Erica paused, glanced at me, then kept scribbling voltages onto her clipboard like it didn't matter. At that point, none of us had any idea what was happening up on the surface. But the tension, it had already begun to trickle down through the concrete. Something wasn't right. We just didn't know yet how wrong it was going to get. Then everything changed. Our handheld units chirped at once, the priority alert tone that overrides local traffic. The voice on the MTA emergency channel sounded thin, filtered, and urgent. Maintenance Sector Juliet 9, Code Red. By order of OEM and NYPD, crews are to remain underground only until airborne toxin sweeps finish topside. Chemical plumes heavier than air are reported above ground. Seal mezzanine stairways until we broadcast the all clear. No mention of fire, gas, or structural collapse. Lopez raised his eyebrows, thumbed transmit. Control, this is repair crew Juliet 9-4. Clarify hazard type. We're mid-job. Only static. Then a muffled crash somewhere topside drifted through the ventilation grates, metal pounding concrete, followed by distant sirens. Derek muttered that the Yankees game must have gone sideways again. We laughed without humor, finished the clip replacement, and started rolling the carts north, planning to exit at 42nd. Halfway there, the mezzanine lights beyond the platform flickered off, leaving our work area the sole island of brightness in pitch dark. That was the first time we saw movement, silhouettes on the platform edge, shuffling rather than walking. 4 figures stepped into the tunnel bore, picking their way across ballast. Their clothes were office casual, but they moved as though gravity only half applied, heads lolling, feet dragging. One carried a briefcase that scraped loud against tie plates. Ramon waved, asked if they needed medical help. No replies, only a low guttural moan, something between a cough and a growl. Then the nearest commuter collapsed to hands and knees, pushed upright, and staggered forward again, eyes unfocused, skin pale as chalk under the floodlights. Derek swore and reached for his radio. The second figure lunged at him, jaws snapping shut inches from Derek's shoulder. I yanked Derek backward. Fab swung a 2-foot track wrench like a bat, catching the attacker across the temple. The blow should have flattened any normal skull, but the commuter only spun, regained footing, and advanced. His jaw hung crooked, teeth clicking. Dark streaks ran down his collar. 2 more of them crowded through the light spill. Their fingers pawed at the air, nails leaving grey crescents in the rust film on the rail web as they scraped past. Ramon shouted for everyone to fall back to the southbound service alcove. We dragged the carts in reverse, metal wheels rattling over frogs and ballast. Erica killed the generator to plunge the tunnel behind us into shadow. Our helmet lamps snapped on automatically, creating sharp cones that jittered with every breath. The figures kept pace but did not sprint. At the alcove, Fab and I tipped the carts on their sides, wedging them across the steel access door while Lopez wrestled the manual latch. The door groaned but held. Inside, the alcove smelled of brake dust and old insulation. Our phone repeater sat dead. The third rail kill sign still glowed battery red near the ceiling. One of the few fixtures with an internal backup cell, independent of Con Ed's grid. Erica rummaged until she found 2 fresh long steel pry bars and thrust one at me. Whatever this is, we're not staying in a shoebox. We had a 50-yard connection tunnel ahead that linked to the abandoned City Hall loop track. From there, a ladder led to an old sandstone maintenance gallery. The plan, if one could call it a plan, was to reach the loop, cut west, and find the South Ferry ventilation tower where a service elevator rose straight to the street. Rescue teams sometimes staged there during floods. The alternative was sitting and praying. Lopez cracked the alcove door to peek. A single pale hand groped through the gap, nails chipped, bracelet dangling. He slammed it shut. The latch bent, screws whining against sheet metal. We heard scraping, wet breathing, then the eerie sound of teeth gnawing at steel, as if instinct insisted there must be flesh beneath. Fab clipped 2 auxiliary flood lamps to his belt for later and jammed a rail bender across the door handles. We left the alcove through a low utility corridor studded with cable trays. The air thickened with hot diesel residue and rotten subway water. Pipes overhead dripped condensation that tapped like sleet on ballast. Somewhere far along the Lexington line, a breaker tripped. A blue corona flashed opposite the curve, strobed like summer lightning, then died. We walked in silence, 1 foot after another, boots crunching ballast, headlamps catching flecks of mica in the nice walls. We reached the loop turnout at 0235. The grand arched brickwork of the decommissioned City Hall platform appeared ahead, once a showpiece in 1904, now a ghost stop used only for fan tours a few days each year. Benches sat overturned, and a century of dust covered terracotta plaques. The first corpse lay at the curve apron, face down, arms folded beneath the torso as if mid-prayer. He wore a tan MTA inspector vest, but no one recognized him. His back showed a ragged bite, suit fabric torn. We stepped wide. Fab whispered that we ought to remove ID tags so the dead would stay anonymous in our minds. No one argued. We pressed on. Near the base of the ladder to the ventilation gallery, the group behind us caught up. Their shuffles echoed through the archway. 5, maybe 6 figures staggered into sight. One tripped on the third rail coverboard, fell, rose without complaint, leg bending wrong at the knee, yet still pushing forward as though nerves had rerouted. Ramon told Derek to go first. The apprentice clipped his tool belt to the rung and climbed. Erica followed. The ladder felt colder than the passenger rail outside in February. Halfway up, Derek started yelling. A man in a Metropolitan Museum sweatshirt had latched onto Derek's boot and gnawed through the leather toe. Derek kicked, loosening a rain of rust. Fab dropped his bag, rushed forward with the pry bar, and slammed it across the sweatshirt man's arms until bones cracked like dry twigs. The grip released. Ramon shoved Derek upward. I shoved Erica. Then we heard Fab scream. 2 creatures clasped him, toppling him backward. His flood lamps exploded against tiles with sharp pops. Ramon dragged me onto the ladder. Fab's voice carried through the vault. Seal the hatch. Something wet splattered. The floodlights guttered as battery packs smashed under trampling feet. Darkness chased our ascent. We bolted the iron hatch at the gallery top just as the first hand slammed into it below. The grate rang, echoing like a burglar alarm inside the vent shaft. Derek sobbed. His boot was shredded, 2 toes visible beneath shredded sock. The rest of us stared at the hatch, half expecting it to buckle. It didn't. Slow fists thudded rhythmically, then stopped. Silence returned, oppressive. The ventilation gallery stretched south under City Hall Park, an 1890s cut-and-cover passage with brick alcoves every 20 feet. Emergency light strips along the crown flickered, but lived off a diesel backup above, so we had enough illumination to ditch headlamps for a while. We took stock. 1 water canteen, 3 Cliff Bars, Derek's ruined boot, Erica's lockout kit, Ramon's transit radio now mute, my portable multimeter, and 2 pry bars. No firearms, of course. MTA rules forbade them. Our only potential exit was the South Ferry shaft, 3/4 of a mile south. We limped on, avoiding water pockets where rats splashed. The gallery curved gently. Historic chalk markings lingered on walls. Brooklyn Bridge vent 1913. Faint arrows. At one alcove, we heard faint sobbing. A teenage girl hunched beside a corroded air damper, face streaked with grime. She wore a Francis Lewis High School hoodie, one earbud dangling. When Erica spoke, the girl looked through her, eyes glassy. She tried to rise. The motion revealed bite marks on her calf. No blood flowed. The wound looked sunken, edges grey. She wasn't coughing or moaning, just staring, searching for recognition she could no longer process. Ramon gently guided her to a bench, then backed away. 10 minutes later, the moaning started again, deeper now, vibrating from her chest like a stuck subway horn. We kept moving. About 200 yards on, Derek collapsed. Not from exhaustion, his expression was blank. He clutched the ladder bite, skin shading oddly. Erica checked for bleeding. There was little. Whatever pathogen rode those commuters seemed to juice the marrow first, rewiring flesh faster than any septic infection I had ever seen. Ramon made a decision born of 30 years with transit. Wheel locker room number 16 is ahead. We hole up, treat him, signal for evac. We carried Derek between us while he murmured nursery rhyme fragments. Locker room 16 lay behind a half-inch steel maintenance door, left over from Cold War civil defense retrofits. Inside, shelves held discarded respirators, banded stacks of maps, and one industrial-grade first aid kit. Derek sweated, eyes drifting. Erica flushed the bite with saline, wrapped it in sterile gauze, reinforced with duct tape. We propped him against a file cabinet and secured the door using 2 lengths of threaded rod through the latch loops, makeshift but strong. Then we waited. After a while, heavy thuds roamed in the corridor, stragglers following scent or sound, feet scuffing, palms dragging along brick. One bumped our door, sniffed the seam, shuffled on. Overhead, ancient ventilation fans spun intermittently, pushing diesel fumes and a faint odor like copper pennies across the ceiling. Derek's skin cooled, his breathing slowed to shallow hitches. Ramon recited baseball stats under his breath, perhaps to anchor his mind. Erica inventoried every cabinet twice, extracting zip ties, reflective tape, a broken handset. I stared at the map, highlighting mental routes, forward to South Ferry, backward to City Hall, upward through vent ducts to unknown streets maybe crawling with infected. Our phones had died hours earlier. Near dawn, though we could not see dawn, Derek sat up. He faced Erica, eyes now milky. No voice left. He lurched. Ramon stepped in with the pry bar, angled not to smash, but to pin. The bar slammed shoulder muscle to steel cabinet. Derek thrashed, teeth snapping air. Erica hesitated. Ramon could not hold long. The old man's arms trembled. I grabbed a coil of 12-gauge wire, looped it twice around Derek's wrists, and cinched tight, then kicked his ankles from under him. He toppled, still biting. No blood spilled, only dull thuds as skull met concrete. We spent the next minutes wrapping more wire until arms and legs bound. The body writhed but could not stand. Ramon stepped back quietly, shoulders sinking. "That's not Derek anymore." He said it flat but final. We left him inside. We took the first aid kit, 4 road flares, and a bolt cutter. We layered duct tape over the outer door seals. The moans reverberated lower now, as though the infection thickened vocal cords. We kept walking south. The gallery dipped under Fulton Street where ground saturation always leaked. Water covered the floor ankle deep, reflecting our headlamps as jagged shards. Old posters from a 2001 Poetry in Motion campaign clung to tiled columns, molding beyond recognition. We slogged on until we reached shaft 94, the service elevator. We found burnt wiring at the call panel, elevator cars stuck 30 feet above. A service hatch beside it led to a hoistway ladder, but a partial collapse had shoved concrete debris across half the ladder rungs. Erica tested footing. The rung crumbled. Climbing meant risking a fall into darkness or onto rebar. Ramon demanded we try anyway. I vetoed gently. My expertise said the hoistway was a tomb waiting to happen. On the landing sat an old track geometry cart, the kind with a battery bank and infrared transceiver. Erica had a guess. The pack might have enough juice to power a handheld, or at least spark a flare. We opened the cart's panel, bridged lines, and coaxed 12 volts into Ramon's radio. Static at first, then a carrier tone in fragments. Secure sublevels, NYPD cordon, infection airborne unknown. The signal faded under a scream we prayed came from the radio, not the tunnel, then silence. We triggered a road flare anyway, wedging it upright in a ballast sump where exhaust would carry upward through a vent tower. The magnesium glare painted brickwork blood orange. Slow figures materialized at the edge of the circle. Office workers, a sanitation man in reflective green, even a tourist wearing an I Love New York poncho. All shared the same blank gaze, open mouths, dark streaks drying on jaws. Ramon raised the pry bar high, but the group numbered more than 20. Erica and I each grabbed a rusted railjack handle as improvised spears. We backed toward a doorway marked Cable Chamber B2. The infected sloshed after us. Their steps sounded like shovels through wet sand. Inside the cable chamber, ceiling clearance dropped to 5 feet, forcing us to crouch. The infected could not navigate quickly. They banged skulls on beams, stumbled. We skewered the first two through the concrete block entrance, pinning them as temporary barricades, their bodies wedged in the jam. Others pushed, but the jam slowed them. We retreated through coils of fiber, crossing what looked like spiderwebs of glass strands. I clipped dozens with my belt knife, hoping to tangle feet behind us. Somewhere a ceramic splice tray cracked under heel. At the far end, a narrow ventilation duct rose vertical, a faded stencil read, Battery Park Substation. Below the duct, a rusted ladder descended instead, leading to lower utility chambers seldom visited. I suggested the descent. The upper route might open near surface vents where infected roamed. Going deeper bought time and darkness. Ramon argued we should maintain altitude to aim for an exit. Erica sided with me. Wounded surfaces we could at least hide. Ramon yielded. We removed the ladder bolts. The 8-foot panel fell away, revealing a shaft round as a cannonball. We climbed down into a heat haze. Air tasted mineral, like copper pipe shavings. The floor opened into a wide cylindrical gallery built of limestone blocks, a pocket of forgotten 1910 infrastructure. Massive relay cabinets lined walls, antique insulators glazed green. A long-dead DC converter still carried warning labels. Danger, high voltage, 600 volts. We found a maintenance office with a steel door and a working mechanical lock. Inside, battered metal desks held notebooks from 1994 listing repair part numbers. A Krupp's coffee pot coated with dust squatted on a hot plate. More important, on a top shelf lay 2-gallon jugs of sealed emergency water and a crate of ancient shrink-wrapped Twinkies, hostess snacks from some Y2K stash. Calories remain calories. We carried supplies to a recessed breaker pit, the only place the air felt less stifling, and barricaded the office entrance with 2 metal desks pivoted on side edges. For the first time since descending, we paused longer than 5 minutes. Ramon slumped against a relay rack and rolled the pry bar in his palms. Erica searched the desks and found a Polaroid snapshot. 3 men in 1970s mustaches posing with a brand new GE transformer, happy to keep the subway running. She taped the photo to the wall and whispered we'd sign our own names before leaving. Noise resumed by mid-morning. It started as scratching, several sharp staccato taps, coming from the limestone wall opposite our barricade. Not the corridor we used. This was the outer curve of the cylinder where no doorway existed. Something on the far side clawed steadily, like a dog digging through plaster. Bits of stone dust sifted down, drifting in beams of our headlamps. Ramon rapped the wall back. Silence followed. He put his ear to the block and jerked away. "Breathing," he mouthed. We retightened barricades, the scratching renewed, now accompanied by low groans. Whether infected sensed vibration, heat, or blind instinct, they had started tunneling. Not smart, just relentless. I pictured the mass of commuters topside, forced downward by police or panic. Wandering tunnels like water until they pressed into dead ends, where prey whispered through echoes. Our safe room was a dinner bell. We needed a real barrier. Erica and I hauled a spool of number 6 copper from the relay racks, unspooled 20 yards, and threaded it across the pit entrance like a trip snare at shin height. We wired the live end to an old battery stack, hoping residual charge remained. If nothing else, the copper might tangle legs. Ramon improvised caltrops from cut rebar, 4-inch shards hammered at right angles, then sprinkled them near the barricade. The wall behind us cracked around noon. A limestone sliver the size of a quarter popped out, landing with a faint ping. Dust puffed. Through the pinhole, something grey probed, possibly a finger stripped to sinew. I slammed a relay cabinet against the place, bolting the footpad to the floor with a masonry bit. More cracks spidered outward but slowed. For the moment, steel outranked bone. We rested in shifts that afternoon, one always standing watch. In dreams snatched between clangs, I heard concourses above brimming with tourists still unaware, buses honking, city noise continuing. I awoke to find that memory belonged to another reality. Underground, the only clock beat was claws on stone. Ramon developed a plan. Use the relay room's secondary cable trunk to exit west beneath Trinity Place, surface at the disused Cortlandt Street emergency stair, and try for the Battery Park ferry slips. That meant 2,000 feet of narrow tube crawling, but the cable trunk possessed 2 by 3 foot access hatches along its run. We could loosen plates with impact wrenches from our belt kits. Supplies: 1 jug water, 5 Twinkies each, 4 road flares remaining, pry bars, bolt cutter, first aid. We packed quietly, leaving the desks in place to disguise the door as well as possible should rescue teams come later. I wrote on the Polaroid in black Sharpie, Crew Juliet 94, heading Trinity cable trunk. Then I taped the photo to a binder clip on the breaker handle. The scratching paused as we cracked the trunk access bolts. Maybe the noise of wrenches masked us. Maybe the infected listened too, assessing. We lifted the plate and wiggled inside. The trunk felt like a forgotten mine. Cables once thick as forearms had been stripped decades earlier, leaving only guide rollers and dust. We crawled single file, Ramon leading, Erica behind me. Every 15 feet a hatch offered exit into unknown chambers, some leading upward via stub shafts. After the third hatch, air stirred, a faint drift of outside scent. River water, diesel, possibly tide. Encouraging. We kept crawling, knees scraped on corroded brackets until jeans shredded. At one point, Erica hissed for pause. We all heard it. Metal banging behind. Back where we entered, something had found our plate. The echo chased us, not sprinting, but moving, closing the distance foot by foot. We reached hatch 7, nearest Trinity. Ramon loosened bolts, swung the panel, and dropped into a square room with bare conduit stub-outs. A faint glow leaked through a collapsed ceiling grate overhead. Daylight filtered down an air shaft. Relief almost numbed me, but 2 shapes shuffled in the shaft base. Infected, trapped by fallen debris, arms pinned yet still alive. They hissed. Ramon speared one through the collarbone, pinning it to a beam, while Erica and I squeezed past. The second twisted enough to grip Ramon's sleeve, cloth ripped free, wide threads dangling. We yanked him clear, jumped over rubble, and ducked into a side corridor. Far behind, the cable trunk panel clanged shut. Metal squealed. Our pursuers had entered. We could hear scraping on bolts as hands and teeth attempted to widen the tunnel. The side corridor led to a sealed blast door, marking a retired signal relay vault. A grated hatch above opened to Trinity Place stairwell, but rusted bolts resisted. Erica passed me the bolt cutter. Its jaws squealed but severed shanks. We heaved on the grate. Paint flakes rained, until it lurched. A wedge of grey daylight spilled across our boots. As we climbed, a shout echoed below. Human, Articulate, male, someone alive. He called again, "Hold the gate!" We froze. A flashlight beam jerked through rubble behind us. A lanky man in Amtrak coveralls scrambled over wreckage, panting for air. 2 infected clung to his heels. Ramon cursed under breath but shoved a pry bar down to the man. The newcomer grasped it. I hauled. He cleared the lip. We slammed the grate, but the infected pounded upward, fingers worming through mesh. One palm caught my boot heel. I stomped. The grate trembled, and the fingers slipped away. The ladder shook as weight dropped. We slid the grate back, reseated bolts by hand, no tools, praying friction would hold. Then, we hustled up a spiral stair whose steps creaked like violin strings. Halfway, the Amtrak worker introduced himself. Samuel Reed, catenary electrician dispatched from Penn Station, cut off during the alert. We nodded, little time for pleasantries. At the top landing, daylight blinded us through a cracked access door. The street looked abandoned, asphalt gleaming under afternoon sun, occasional papers drifting. Distant helicopter rotors thumped above the financial district, but no sirens, no traffic, the silence of a city that never sleeps doing exactly that. We stepped onto Trinity Place. For the first time since nightfall, humid summer air brushed my cheeks. It carried no horns, no voices, just wind sighing between glass towers. Erica scanned south. The battery area looked intact, but thin smoke rose near the Staten Island ferry terminal. Ramon pointed at a police cruiser idling sideways at the corner, doors open, roof bar flashing red because the engine still ran. No officer in sight. Before we could decide direction, a chorus of moans rolled from the subway grate behind us. Grey arms groped through slats, a head forced between bars, until skin split at the brow. We backed away. Samuel muttered that those things never stopped pressing. No exhaustion, no self-preservation. We hurried south along Trinity, weaving between parked delivery vans. Past Rector Street, the windows of a CVS pharmacy had shattered inward. Products lay scattered, cotton swabs, greeting cards, vitamin bottles. A half-eaten granola bar rested on a checkout counter. No bodies, just traces of panic. We collected gauze and a bottle of rubbing alcohol. Ramon taped his torn sleeve and insisted we keep moving. A block from Bowling Green, a barricade of sanitation trucks spanned Broadway, hoods facing north. Yellow placards taped to windshields read, "Quarantine perimeter, keep back." Nobody guarded it. We climbed onto a flatbed of bagged trash to survey. Beyond the barrier, Battery Park streets looked emptier still. Pigeons strutted on the plaza. A hot dog cart lay on its side. The harbor glinted behind empty flagpoles. Our plan shifted. Reach the Staten Island ferry slips. Board whatever vessel remained. Motor across to less dense shorelines. Ferries stood idle. Maybe diesel tanks half full, keys inside. Even drifting mid-channel might buy rest. We skirted the trucks and entered the park. Loose tourist maps crinkled underfoot. At the Castle Clinton wall, a row of figures leaned against masonry, backs turned. One lifted its head slowly at our approach. Cloudy eyes tracked, yet limbs stayed slack, as if the midday sun sapped their drive. We eased past. Near Slip 5, the ferry, Senator John Marchi, listed against the dock bumper. The gangway sat half extended. No crew visible. As we debated boarding, a scream tore across the terminal concourse. Female, rising then choking. We looked. On the mezzanine, a woman in Port Authority uniform swung a fire axe at 3 infected, knocking one over the railing. She spotted us and yelled for help, voice hoarse. Samuel dashed first. I followed with pry bar raised. Erica and Ramon secured our rear. We leaped turnstiles, raced up escalator steps frozen mid-flight. Samuel tackled an attacker, both skidded across tiles. I drove the bar into the creature's spine. The body thudded flat, but arms still clawed. I jerked the bar free, smashed the skull once, twice, a sickening crunch yet still short of gore detail. The motion's automatic. The second creature grabbed the woman's vest, tearing reflective mesh. She hacked down, splitting its shoulder. It collapsed, twitching. The third shuffled, distracted by a radio clattering on the floor. Samuel kicked it down the emergency stairs, where it tumbled and lay still. Silence reclaimed the hall. The woman gave her name. Officer Maria Cortez, Terminal Security. She explained that sealed instructions earlier that morning ordered staff to evacuate passengers upstairs and lock the slips, but infected passengers overwhelmed them. Cortez held out a set of ferry master keys. Engines might start if batteries aren't dead, she said. Fuel's another question. We weighed choices. The infected now hammered the exterior doors at the concourse's south end, distant but growing louder. Cortez offered the ferry as both shelter and transport. Battery power could provide lights, maybe a head start to mid-harbor where we could regroup. Ramon agreed. We set course for Slip 5. Samuel and I hauled the gangway chain, while Erica kept lookout from the bow. As we stepped onto the deck, a new sound rippled across the waters. Distant air raid sirens on Governor's Island. The whale rose and fell, mournful. Cortez keyed the wheelhouse door. Inside, the bridge smelled of diesel and stale coffee. She toggled the battery master switch. Instrument lights blinked faint amber. Good sign. Samuel ran below to check fuel valves. I scanned the pier. Silhouettes gathered at the slip mouth. The infected from Broadway, drawn by echo. Some slid down embankments. Others waded waist-deep. They advanced without concern for water or rusted rebar. The pool by the ramp churned with pale limbs. Engine starter whined, coughed, caught, died. Samuel cursed quietly. Tried again. On the fourth attempt, the port engine sputtered alive, vibrating deck plates. The starboard engine lagged. Meanwhile, infected reached the gangway's foot, climbing. I tied off the ramp cleats, loosened slip lines, and shouted for throttle. The vessel shuddered as mooring lines snapped free. Cortez reversed slowly. The gangway scraped the dock, then dropped with a splash. Two infected lunged, missed, and hit water. Others trundled still, their clothes soaking, faces serene. The ferry eased backward into the harbor. Water separated us by 40 feet when the dock swarm spilled entirely into the drink, still walking, still thrashing, refusing to float. Cortez turned us west toward the Statue of Liberty. Wind carried brine and siren wails. We watched the skyline. Glass towers reflecting afternoon sun. Beautiful, immaculate, abandoned. Columns of smoke peppered Midtown. Helicopters still orbited, too distant to hail. Below, Samuel discovered starboard batteries fried. We would navigate on one screw, slow but possible. Ramon fetched a subway map from his breast pocket, smoothed it on the console, and tapped Staten Island. He proposed we cut engines near Tompkinsville, anchor, and reassess when night fell. I watched the compass slip 3 degrees off-center as the single propeller pushed us in a wide arc past Governor's Island. The ferry answered the helm like a shopping cart with one stuck wheel, but Cortez coaxed steady headway. Green Channel buoys drifted past at half the usual pace. Gulls wheeled overhead, puzzled by a vessel that made so little wake. Then the Verrazzano Narrows Bridge rose ahead, cables glittering in hazy sun. We kept port of the deep draft lane, where a container ship sat dead in the water. Tugs lashed bow and stern yet unmanned. Stacked boxes rattled as metal expanded in heat. No movement on deck. Samuel muttered that shipping lanes must have closed once alerts sounded. No crew would risk docking under quarantine. We closed on Tompkinsville breakwater. The pier north of the Coast Guard station looked intact, fenders high enough for our draft. Cortez throttled back. Metal whined below as the reduction gear braked. We slid alongside a rust-streaked dolphin pile. Samuel tossed a heaving line, caught a cleat, and cinched. No harbor master appeared. No NYPD launch. Just afternoon cicadas buzzing in scrub near the railway cut. The plan set in minutes. Split to scavenge parts. Cortez and Samuel would try the Coast Guard motor pool for batteries, diesel cans, and a handheld VHF set. Ramon and I would sweep the ferry maintenance warehouse opposite Bay Street for grease, spare impellers, and any working inverter that could fast-charge cells. Erica would remain on the bridge monitoring the harbor, horn in hand if trouble closed. Concrete shattered underfoot as we stepped onto the pier. Salt had gnawed it for years. A Staten Island Railway caboose repurposed as an office sat on blocks. Windows papered with quarantine notices dated 2 days earlier. Aboard, chairs lay toppled, coffee mugs half full, flies drifting on the surface. No signs of struggle, Evacuation must have been quick. We marched inland along a chain-link fence topped with coil wire. Between slats, the parking lot held 2 Humvees and a Ford F-250 marked CG312. Doors hung open, dashboards dark. A forklift sat with pallet tines rising like antlers. Samuel tested the Humvee starter. Dead. He popped the hood, yanked the battery cover and grinned. Absorbed glass mat, match for ferry spec. We stacked 2 on a flatbed cart. Inside the motor pool shed, stacks of orange life vests, fire axes, and smoke flares waited as if drill inspection were tomorrow. Ramon stuffed 4 axes into a duffel, plus a coil of nylon line. I found a 24-volt solar charge controller still boxed, and laughed that the requisition gods had smiled. Samuel unearthed a handheld VHF radio, flipped the switch, static, then an automated loop, female voice calm, mechanical. This is United States Coast Guard Sector, New York, broadcasting on Channel 16. Civil authority shelter-in-place order remains in effect. Avoid contact with infected citizens. Vessels proceed to offshore anchorages and await instructions. The loop repeated in Spanish, then French, then silence. At least one transmitter still lived. We returned to the slip. Erica waved from the upper deck, pointing west. Through the gap between terminal buildings, I saw movement on Victory Boulevard. Shapes lurching. Dozens. Whiter shirts catching sun. They advanced downhill toward the waterfront, perhaps drawn by the engine thrum. We upped the pace, lugging batteries onto the car deck while Cortez kept watch with binoculars. Ramon guided cables through the companionway to the engine room. Sweat beaded on his brow, though the air felt cooler near water. We swapped batteries, tested voltage, 12.8 decent. Samuel hit the starter. The starboard engine coughed, sputtered, roared. The vibration smoothed. Prop pitch matched portside at last. Cortez flashed a thumbs up. The infected rounded the terminal corner at 1420, maybe 40 individuals. Office workers, MTA sweepers, a bride still in satin, veil torn, hair plastered against cheeks. They moved at the deliberate shuffle we had come to know. Slow individually, but unstoppable in mass. The gangway still rested on the pier. Water sat low tide, exposing algae slick pilings. The creatures stepped onto steel plates, moans rolling like wind through pipe organ. Erica blasted the ferry horn. Sound waves hammered bay water, rattling windows. It stunned them a heartbeat. Then they pressed again. Cortez shouted to cast off. I sprinted to slip lines, hacked with a deck knife. Lines hissed across bollards. The gap widened by inches. 2 infected misstepped, tumbled between hull and pier, limbs pinwheeling. Others clung to railing cables. Erica reversed thrusters. Wood pilings groaned and snapped. We drifted clear, leaving a handful of figures shuffling at water's edge, hands outstretched as if farewelling. Half a mile off, we assessed haul, batteries installed, fuel registers 3/8 tank, enough for several hours at slow bell. The solar controller might matter later if daylight and panels could be rigged, but for now we set course along Staten Island's coast towards Stapleton Pier Complex, eyeing an old home port dry dock rumored to store emergency diesel. Samuel plotted on a harbor chart. He spoke about the strategic petroleum reserve tanks at Port Reading across Arthur Kill, but we judged those beyond reach with limited crew. Clouds towered above New Jersey, bruised purple, edges lit by late summer glare. Thunder rumbled faint. A southeasterly breeze pushed whitecaps across the upper bay. The ferry rode them well, though steering lagged 2 seconds off helm command. Through binoculars, I glimpsed smoke down Bay Street, spiraling from what looked like a commuter bus overturned near Stapleton Heights. Approaching the old naval pier, we slowed. Pile clusters leaned like tired sentries. Warehouses lined the quay, roll-up doors shut. No lights. Cortez bellied the ferry against a rubber fender, engaged clutches neutral but props spinning idle to hold station. We lowered a rotted Jacob's ladder. Ramon, Samuel and I descended. Erica remained at the engine order telegraph. Cortez stayed bridge. Warehouse 4 bore an FDNY placard I-120, flammable liquids. The roll-up door chain padlock hung, the hasp screws already loose from previous tampering. Ramon pried them. Inside, Dust motes floated in sunshafts. Steel barrels stood in rows, red stenciled DF2. The diesel aroma hit immediately. We cracked one bung. Fuel looked clean. Nearby, a forklift battery charger indicated full green light. If we could siphon a dozen gallons into a transport container, we could extend range days. We located two 50-gallon towable drums and rolled them outside, hoses dangling. Samuel fitted a hand pump. We filled them halfway, weight barely manageable. A squeal echoed deeper in the warehouse, the kind pallet jacks make when rust rubs steel. We froze. Columns hid sightlines. Ramon flicked off flashlight. A man emerged between crates, tall, rail-thin, wearing Port of New York longshore coveralls smeared with soot. He did not shuffle. He walked, eyes wary. Ramon hailed. The stranger kept distance, asked if we were with the tugs. We shook heads, said we had a ferry and room. He introduced as Lucas Pereira, pier rigger, isolated since dawn trying radios. He carried a broken signal pistol devoid of cartridges. As we spoke, low moans drifted from deeper in the building. Lucas warned infected wandered Bayside earlier. He barricaded himself in tool cage, but pounding ceased hours back, likely still inside. We invited him aboard. He nodded, but insisted on grabbing medical supplies from the cage first. We moved as unit, footsteps muffled on concrete spattered with hydraulic oil. As we neared a forklift parked astride pallets, the moans sharpened. Two infected stumbled from behind crates, longshoremen in orange vests, faces distended where dehydration had tightened flesh. Samuel swung a crowbar low, clipping shins. Figures toppled. Ramon followed with axe handle to skull base. Bones cracked, sound dull like snapping driftwood. Movement ceased, though hands twitched autonomically. Lucas secured a duffel of gauze packs, antibiotics, 2 bags of IV saline, and a bundle of harbor pilot's charts. We retreated, rolling drums to key edge. The sky dimmed. First rain spatters peppered deck. Hauling drums up Jacob's ladder proved folly. Instead, we slung hoses, pumped diesel directly from pier to ferry bunker fill. 20 minutes yielded 30 gallons before rain intensified. Thunder cracked overhead. Lightning speared beyond Coney Island, momentarily outlining the skyline. Dark towers. No electric sparkle. With drums empty, we prepared to cast off. Lightning illuminated figures down pier, 10, maybe 12, drawn by pump clack or thunder. They closed in silence except for footfalls splashing puddles. We clipped Jacob's ladder rope, pushed off piles, engaged ahead slow. Rain sheeted across windows as Cortez steered east for deeper water. Night fell under storm. Navigation lights burned faint red and green. We ran radar, but battery draw risked depletion. Instead, Cortez used handheld spotlight to sweep. Rain reduced visibility to a city block. The ferry's diesel vibrated hull like distant jackhammer, comfortingly mechanical against unnatural quiet. We anchored off Bay Ridge Channel, dropping port hook in 20 feet water. The Staten Island coastlights, normally orange sodium glow, remained dark except occasional transformer flash. We set anchor watch rotations. Cortez first till midnight, me till 0300, Ramon thereafter. Erica inventoried supplies. Lucas cleaned engine filters. Samuel rigged solar controller on upper deck, panels angled between lifeboat davits. Just before my watch began, Cortez called us to bridge. In spotlight beam, shapes slogged through shallows toward hull, at least 24 infected, outer garments plastered dark by rain. They pushed against storm current, relentless. Some vanished under waves, reappeared nearer, hands outstretched. The realization hit. Water slowed them, but did not deter. If tide dropped, hull might ground enough for them to reach rail openings. We lacked firearms beyond flare pistols. Ramon devised deterrent, mix diesel with engine oil in a bucket, soak rope fenders, ignite, let them drift aft as burning barrier. Fire on water spreads thin but bright, maybe distraction. We donned gloves, dipped lines, lit with road flare. Flames guttered in rain yet floated, orange tongues licking surface. Infected paused, faces lit unnatural carnival hues. Some reached flaming patches, flesh charring to black yet nerves oblivious. They kept advancing until sinking. Flames slowed them, not stopped. Samuel proposed weighing anchor, running engines until outgoing tide carried us mid-channel. We agreed. Anchor chain rattled, throttle engaged. Ferry eased east. Infected flailed behind, swept by current. When we reached Gravesend Bay, depth monitor showed 40 feet. Tide ripped strong. We idled, engines ticking steady. I started my watch at the starboard rail, spotlight sweeping. Rain eased, clouds parted enough to reveal faint city glow bouncing off low ceiling. Across the Narrows, Brooklyn row house blocks lay dark. Street grids, usually firefly neon, resembled cemetery stones. Occasional car headlamps flicked down 86th Street, then died. Maybe survivors testing ignition. Inside wheelhouse, Samuel fiddled VHF, scanning channels. On one channel a voice cracked through. Male, deliberate, mid-Atlantic accent. "This is Red Hook Terminal calling any vessel with fuel. Barge Kennedy aground north side. Crew alive. Seek tow or supplies." Static followed. Samuel keyed mic. "Red Hook. This is Ferry Marchi off Gravesend. Limited power. 20 passengers negative. Correction 5 crew. Can't tow. Can deliver diesel if hose reached." After 5 seconds, acknowledged Marchi. Pier cranes operational. Could hoist container along hull. Zombies thick on pier. If you land, bring noise deterrent. We weighed options. Red Hook lay 2 miles north, inside Buttermilk Channel. Could aid yield bigger payoff. Containers with food, medical gear. Also risk. Cranes needed generators. Infected density unpredictable. Cortez eyed fuel gauge, still above quarter. She voted yes. Ramon supported. Erica calculated probabilities silently, then nodded. Lucas shrugged. Any landfall offered chance his wife in Park Slope still lived. Near 0200 we eased up channel. Moon rose behind clouds, giving silvery wash. Red Hook cranes silhouetted like praying mantises. We sounded horn twice. No response, but a single floodlight flicked atop pier shed, pointing at grounded barge listing against riprap. Figures meandered dock, scores, maybe 100. Some beat on container walls, others milled like shoppers unsure what aisle held bargains. Cortez killed engines at 100 yards, letting current nudge us starboard side to wind. We rigged spring line to bollard via grapnel shot by pneumatic launcher, a lucky relic from drill kits. Cable hissed across gap, snagged, held. We winched slowly. From barge deck, 2 men waved handheld LED strobes. They lowered a pallet cage by crane cable toward us. Ingenious barrier big enough for 1 person and cargo. Idea, ferry crew boards cage, hoisted to barge deck above zombie reach. Swap diesel for supply crates. Descend, return. I volunteered with Samuel. Ramon protested, but need for technical eye on diesel transfer convinced him. We climbed into cage, clutching axes. Crane motor whined, cage rose, ferry deck dropping away. Infected noticed sound, turned, shuffled, arms up. Distance felt small. Rainwater dripped from cable into face. Barge deck loomed. Workers hauled cage inward, latched to railing. Their names: Morgan Patel, Dock Boss, and Jorge Diaz, crane electrician. They looked ragged, eyes red, but steady. Morgan explained generator below deck driving crane and partial lights. Diesel nearly gone. They bartered. 2 crates of MREs, medical satchel containing sutures, antibiotics, analgesics, plus handheld air horn cluster for our noise defense. We pumped 30 gallons into their transfer hose. Their meter blinked green. Below, infected mass pressed against barge hull, unable to climb steel side but reaching nonetheless. Rain had washed blood from their clothes, leaving pale cloth, almost apparition-like. Deal done, we reloaded cage. As crane swung outboard, a new surge of sound rose. Roar of engines. North along channel, a tugboat rounded pier, searchlight sweeping, horn blasting staccato. On deck, silhouettes of men with batons herded infected off Jacob ladders. The tug skipper radioed, "Terminal crew, hold positions. We're clearing east side." The vessel rammed pier abutment, crushing 3 infected, hull dented but intact. It reversed, lined up again, repeated, systematic. Swarm diverted. Crane lowered us to ferry deck. We cast off. Tug skipper hailed again, offering convoy to Bayonne. where Port Authority muster formed. We exchanged coordinates, planned to rendezvous at dawn near Kilvan Col Channel. Tug would clear debris for deeper draft path. We steamed out with caution, leaving Red Hook glow behind. Morgan and Jorge remained, promising to follow once containers secure. At 0330 we cut throttles mid-upper bay, floating while crew unloaded crates. Each MRE case contained 12 meals, beef stew, pasta, peanut spread, enough for weeks if rationed. Medical satchel impressed Erica most. Lucas triaged supplies, labeling vials with tape. Cortez announced sunrise. Anchor dipped. We settled to light swell. Watch changed again. Ramon took position. I lay on bench in passenger cabin, window streaked, eyes fixed on Statue of Liberty silhouette barely visible. Sleep flirted but refused. Just after dawn, tint brushed horizon. Tug engines rumbled port quarter. The boat, Miss Gloria, nosed alongside. Captain hailing from wheelhouse. Line up behind. We set course Kilvan Col, Newark Bay staging. He warned of floating cars under Bayonne Bridge. We flipped anchor breaker, engaged props, slid into wake. Staten Island shoreline drifted to starboard. Homes along Richmond Terrace showed shattered windows. Patio furniture toppled. Garden State side. Tanks of Bayway refinery reflected orange dawn. Flames licking vent stack. They had gone to flare during shutdown. Approaching bridge at 700 yards, we slowed. Tug horns blasted to scatter flotsam. Through binoculars, I saw 50 or more infected clustered on bridge roadway, some dangling over guardrail, others trapped between stalled vehicles. Hard hats, worker vests, maybe night maintenance crew caught early. From height they spied our vessels, chorus of moans cascading like storm surf. A few clambered outer girders, slipped, fell into water with muffled splashes, then bobbed, still paddling weakly. Kilvan Col narrowed, current brisk. Tug skipper radioed to hug North Bank where channel deeper. We complied, but a container barge adrift midstream forced deviation south. Depth fell from 30 to 20, then 15. Alarm beeped. Cortez increased throttle to counter crosscurrent. Suddenly hull shuddered. Soft bump. Depth 12. We scraped mud. Starboard engine choked, revs falling. Samuel yelled that cooling intake sucked debris. Cortez throttled down. Momentum carried us past shallows, but engine stalled. Port engine alone maintained steerage, but veered bow. Tug circled to assist. Captain ordered ready towline. We prepared hawser. He tossed messenger rope. We hauled, shackled. While securing, I glimpsed hillside cemetery above Elizabethport. Gravestones rose, and amid them new figures wound downhill. Hundreds. Swirl of hospital gowns, business suits, school backpacks, some missing limbs yet driven. The distance looked safe, but current would beach us if tow failed. Tug pulled bow north. Ferry regained mid-channel. Port engine strained. Cortez attempted restart starboard. Samuel hit starter. Nothing. Likely clog. Replacement filters waited but needs dry bilge and time. Tug signaled continuing to Bayonne anchorage half-mile ahead. We accepted. During tow, Lucas monitored bridge vent intake. Stench of marshland mixed with decay. He taped rags to vents. Up ahead, cranes of Global Container Terminal towered, orange steel against pale sky. Skipper guided us to slip guarded by straddle carrier parked crosswise like blockade. Only one figure flagged us. Woman in Coast Guard fatigues brandishing signal panel. She waved to cut throttle. Tug eased lines. We moored. The woman identified as Ensign Dana Carroll, assigned temporary command of makeshift landing. She briefed. Port Authority personnel assembled 100 refugees overnight, erecting barricades from flat racks, awaiting extraction by harbor patrol cutter. Cutter delayed after Hudson River reports of bridge stampede. Food short, morale lower. Carroll requested our ferry for transport. Capacity perfect for evac to Perth Amboy, where National Guard rumored holding bridgehead. Fuel gauge, though, sat below 8th. We weighed risk. Journey 15 nautical miles. Tugs maybe escort. Ramon studied map, counted barrels left. Diesel pumped earlier, left us range 5 hours at dead slow. Enough. Crew huddled in saloon. Decision. Accept evac mission. Better to move large group before infected breached port fence. Morgan radioed from Red Hook, said their generator died. They planned to roof camp shipping office. He declined to join, line cut. Some later, refugees boarded. Dockers, tug crews, stevedores. One family with toddler wearing oversized ear protectors. We counted 94 souls plus our 6. Tug, Miss Gloria, remained alongside to push steerage. Carol commandeered bridge along Cortez. Samuel replaced starboard filter, bled line, prayed. Port fence buckled midday. The infected surged through the breached gate. Maybe 200 in total. We cast off. Props churned. Infected tumbled over bulkhead. Splashed. Some clung mooring lines like barnacles. A young man on lower deck hurled crate to dislodge. Board cracked but worked. Gradually wake widened. Infected receded. Starboard engine coughed alive at 13:30. Joy flickered faces. Kids pressed glass, watching skyline slip north. I fixed eyes on tug skipper, cap pulled over brow, steady as tide. He saluted bridge, then peeled off toward Arthur Kill to search more survivors. We answered horn twice. Water stretched calm into Raritan Bay. Fort Monmouth radomes shimmered south. Smoke columns marked inland fires. Refugees settled on benches, sipping water rations. Ensign Carroll logged manifests. Lucas cleaned a cut on kid's elbow. Erica plotted speed versus fuel, margin slim but hopeful. Around 14:20, a man in reflective vest staggered from engine access, eyes glazed, sleeves soaked crimson. He whispered of bites sustained while boarding. Carroll moved to isolate, but murmurs spread. Fear edged close. The bitten man requested to disembark rather than endanger. With land distant, tossing him to sea felt sentence. Ramon spoke calmly, offered quarantine in tool room. Man agreed, locked himself inside, sliding key under door. No argument followed, silence thicker than heat. Storm clouds returned late afternoon, wind picking up whitecaps again. Perth Amboy refinery tanks glimmered through haze, blessing of civilization. Guard convoy of Humvees visible atop Route 35 bridge, barrels pointed cityward. They flashed headlights at our approach. Ferry horns signaled 3 short. Humvees answered with spotlight Morse. Proceed to slip. We docked at 1700. Guard medics boarded, screened passengers for bites, set triage tents under tank farm eaves. Helicopters chopped overhead, sling loading crates. Refugees filed ashore through cordon. Carroll handed manifest to a captain, saluted, thanks brief. Our crew debated next move, stay with guard, to safety of sorts, or keep ferry mobile, a floating sanctuary able to dart where crowds thinned. Samuel argued utility afloat stood higher, water slowed infected, offered retreat path. Erica concurred. Carroll requested passage back to harbour to search more terminals. She would remain liaison. Decision unanimous. Guard topped our tanks with filtered diesel from bladder pillow. They issued ammo for flare pistols, non-lethal but bright. Captain warned Hudson crossings lost, Jersey City burning. We nodded, not surprised. Before dusk we cast off northbound, 6 again aboard plus Carroll. The bitten man still locked below, silent since midday. We resolved to check after clearing channel. As we passed under Outerbridge crossing, I glanced at sunset. All orange bands, tugboat silhouettes, quiet water under ironwork. For a fragile instant, world seemed paused rather than ended. We anchored near Fresh Kills to examine quarantine room. Door bore scratch marks. Ramon called inside, offered water. No answer. We braced door with chain, cracked it open. Body lay inert, eyes dull, motionless. Infection maybe finished what bite started, yet precaution prevailed. We slid body into tarp, weighted with chain, committed to river. Words few, moment solemn, deck silent until splash faded. Night settled, stars bleeding through clearing sky. We plotted course back to Bay Ridge to await dawn and new search grids. Fuel mid-tank, engine steady, crew weary but alive. We escaped tunnels, ferried strangers, faced water-walking dead, and still horizon beckons. Rescue remains rumor, order a memory, but diesel hum beneath deck and glow of nav lights prove motion, and motion, so long as it lasts, is hope. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, Don't forget to like and subscribe for more unsettling creepypastas. Your support keeps my channel alive. Until next time, stay quiet, stay vigilant, and trust nothing, not even the silence.